I never imagined a simple Saturday sunrise could shatter my fragile peace so violently. Yet there she was, HOA Karen, towering over my front porch, hip jutted forward like a battering ram, eyes blazing entitlement as she wrenched my door open without so much as a hello. In that first heartbeat, horror exploded through me. The delicate spines of my beloved emotional support cactus lay crushed beneath her designer flats, crimson sap drip-streaking across her patent leather. She blinked once in slow motion, as if registering the carnage for the first time, then gasped theatrically, clutching her pearls as though she'd been the victim of some cosmic injustice. My blood roared, but before I could summon words, she held up a laminated HOA notice, voice dripping indignation. "You're in violation of Section 12.4 BUN authorized landscaping. I'm here to enforce community standards." I recognized the phrase, but its absurdity struck me anew as she stepped deeper onto my porch, fingernails curved like talons over my cactus's broken arm. The world narrowed to her smug smirk and the wreckage at her feet. I tasted betrayal and fury in equal measure, but I refused to let her spectacle cow me into submission. I summoned every ounce of restraint I possessed, mentally tracing the five-pointed structure of my impending counterattack. Shock, revelation, confrontation, collapse, and inspiration. Without shifting the furious weight behind my anger, I let her ramble on, collecting damning evidence with precise calm, her voice echoing around my foyer as I retrieved my phone and hit record. Then, with a measured step, I blocked her path to my shattered cactus, tone deceptively soft as I asked, "Is there any proof that I violated that section?" Her jaw tightened. "You know as well as I do that planting a 5-foot cactus without HOA approval is illegal." I feigned confusion, raising my eyebrows in mock inquiry. "Then why is my violation notice dated today, after you trespassed and destroyed my property?" Her face flickered. For a moment, doubt cracked her polished facade. Before she could frame another excuse, I slid the video live to my community page. "Watch this," entitled HOA Karen illegally invade my home and destroy my emotional support cactus. Tell your neighbors. The comments exploded. Outrage, solidarity, disdain for Karen's arrogance. Under the glare of public scrutiny, her practiced composure wobbled. With every notification ping, I felt the tide turning. As her rant collided with the chorus of digital condemnation, the truth emerged like sunlight through storm clouds. She had no right to enforce any rule here because our suburban enclave had opted out of HOA governance 2 years ago. I pulled up the recorded vote on my phone, the timestamp clear. The community's decision to dissolve the HOA final, binding, certified. Her eyes widened as she recognized the fatal flaw in her crusade. Panic bubbled in her throat, but she tried to cling to authority, spouting legal jargon she clearly hadn't reviewed. I pressed play on the dissolution notice, the final board meeting minutes flashing on screen. The commenters called it Karen's Waterloo. At that moment, I slipped out to the curb where Sheriff Munoz had just arrived, drawn by a neighbor's 911 call about a trespassing woman. He stepped up behind me, tall and steady, and when he asked what happened, I handed him my evidence. The video, the vote record, and a photo of the flattened cactus. The sheriff's posture shifted from polite inquiry to professional disbelief as he watched Karen's recorded aggression. She tried to interject, tears in her eyes, voice trembling as she claimed she was just doing her job. But he held up a hand to silence her. "Ma'am, you have no jurisdiction here. You stepped on private property without permission and caused property damage. I'm issuing you a citation for trespassing and vandalism." The world slowed again as she heard the statutes read aloud, her crown of self-importance cracking under the weight of real consequences. I saw her knees weaken, heard that guttural sob of realization as the enormity of her actions crashed over her. The sheriff scribbled the ticket and walked away, leaving Karen draped across my porch rail, shoulders heaving with tears of shame and regret. I didn't gloat. I simply retrieved my cactus remains and nursed it to safety indoors, whispering apologies to its brittle stems. In that aftermath, I spoke into the live stream. "Let this be a lesson. Entitlement has no place in our community, and justice doesn't require hysteria, just truth." Overnight, the video reached tens of thousands, sparking heated debates about HOA overreach, property rights, and personal accountability. Neighbors who once cowered under fake authority rallied behind me, sharing their own stories of small tyrants undone by a dose of reality. By Monday, local news crews camped outside my house, and HOA Karen's name trended in our county. She issued a public apology half-hearted and vague, but most readers saw through it, calling for her complete banishment from any future community board. Her reputation lay in tatters, her self-styled empire evaporated in a single weekend. The sheriff's citation remains on record, a testament that no onino matter how plush and imperious stands above the law. And as for me, I replanted my cactus in a reinforced container, a living reminder that protection can come in thorny forms. If you've ever witnessed entitlement overstep its bounds, share your story. You think Heather's fate was fair or too harsh? From that day forward, the ripples of Karen's downfall spread through our little enclave like aftershocks from a quake few saw coming but all felt deeply. The once polished lawns that lined our streets now bore conversations whispered over fences where neighbors swapped tales of petty HOA tyrants, and the day reality came crashing down on one particularly swollen ego. I watched from my porch as Mrs. Nguyen 2 doors down emerged clutching her phone, eyes brimming, recounting how Karen's recorded trespass had liberated her from years of unexamined fear. She confessed to me that she'd secretly despised every forced trim of her rose bushes yet never dared speak up until she saw Karen's true face exposed live before thousands. Meanwhile, old Mr. Thompson-Woad always bristled under Karen's rigid, no lawn ornaments, rule. Borrowed my video link and played it at our impromptu block party, his booming laughter mingling with the crackle of fireworks someone set off in celebration of reclaimed freedom. In the midst of all this, a new twist surfaced courtesy of Jenna, my next-door neighbor's quietly brave teenager, who I'd encouraged to speak up when she posted her own video of Karen barging into her backyard treehouse earlier that spring. Jenna's footage showed Karen swatting away peaceful wind chimes like they were weapons, her face contorted in overblown Freudian, almost cartoonish counterpoint to the gravity of the sheriff's citation. The county prosecutor, intrigued by the pattern of harassment captured on Jenna's video, contacted us to say that Karen's citation might be only the beginning. If evidence held, multiple misdemeanor charges could follow for repeated trespassing and intimidation. And from a distance, I sensed Karen's world contracting. She unfriended dozens online, her blog vanished, her HOA advocate merchandise sold out for pennies on the dollar. Yet perhaps the greatest victor in this saga was truth itself, unvarnished, undeniable, and unstoppable once it gained momentum. I spent evenings editing together a montage of key moments. Karen's first unauthorized entry, the crushed cactus, the board dissolution vote, her meltdown, the sheriff's reading of charges, and Jenna's Parkside rally. At the end of the video, I inserted a title card reading, "When entitlement meets accountability, justice blooms," a hopeful nod to how even a tiny cactus can blossom anew under protection. That montage went viral in our region, then statewide, prompting local governments to examine their oversight of HOA powers. Soon the county attorney's office announced plans to convene a task force on homeowners association conduct, inviting community members including me and Jen Nato testify. At the inaugural hearing, seated before a panel of officials and journalists, Jenna spoke first. Her calm, clear voice described what it felt like to have her sanctuary invaded, and how years of silent compliance had chained her spirit until Karen's fall showed her the power in a single video. Then I recounted the lessons learned, that no rulebook grants permission to trample others' rights, that standing up need not be loud or violent, only resolute and truthful, and that true community thrives when its members hold each other accountable. As I concluded, I looked at the faces in the room, some nodding, some wiping tears, and realized our personal story had become a catalyst for systemic change. Outside, reporters crowded our front gate, scribbling notes as fascinated neighbors lined up to share how many days they'd lived in fear of petty fines before finding courage in our stand. Meanwhile, Karen's fate took another turn when her landlord served her notice to vacate the rental she'd called home for years. The property management company cited the trespassing citation and vandalism report as grounds for termination, and irony not lost on anyone who'd followed the saga. Homeless and humiliated, Karen was forced to relocate to her sister's tiny condo, where no HOA veil protected her from the consequences of her own making. By the time frost touched the edges of autumn, our community had rewritten its bylaws to include explicit protections against unauthorized entry, defined clear landscaping appeal processes, and established an independent oversight committee on which Jenna and I served. We designed an annual Cactus Day festival celebrating resilience, planting hundreds of succulent saplings in town squares to remind everyone that even the prickliest offenses can foster growth when rooted in justice. In every speech, in every newspaper article featuring our story, I emphasized the simple truth. You don't need grand gestures to topple an empire built on entitlement. You need evidence, solidarity, and the courage to ask why when someone claims authority they don't deserve. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what might have happened if I dashed inside and confronted Karen with shouting and threats. But then I recall the power in measured patience. The calm camera, the clear facts, the community rallied by truth rather than tempered by fear. And I know that cruelty dismantled itself when its mirror reflected back the full extent of its baseless pride. So now I watch my cactus thrive in its reinforced pot by the window, new arms unfurling toward the light. A living testament that damage can heal, and even the smallest survivor can spur whole societies to change. If you've ever felt powerless against an overbearing rulemaker, I invite you to share your own story. Do you believe our response was measured and just, or should we have gone further?